Welcome to Coffee with Democrats, a sensible platform for progressive conversations. Coffee with Democrats is a grassroots movement dedicated to hearing from Democrats, candidates, legislators, and friends from all political backgrounds who want great conversations. Coffee with Democrats is committed to increase Democrat voter registration and Democrat voter turnout by making voting more exciting and meaningful. And now here's your host of Coffee with Democrats, Kevin Dawson.
Good morning and welcome to Coffee with Democrats. We have got one of my favorite people in the entire world with us today, Senator George Young. I'm just so excited to have Senator Young with us as a special guest on Coffee with Democrats. George, good morning. How are you doing this morning?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you so much for allowing me to come and be a part of your wonderful program. I've been looking forward to it and excited about the interchange.
Well, it's great. And we got to talk a little bit about housekeeping here. For everybody who is listening in on this call and listening in and watching this program, please, right now, go onto the comment section and to the share area where you can share this. Please share that we have George on the phone, or excuse me, on the call with us today and on the show. And let them know to get over here and watch this. We need as many people to watch this as we can. So we're on Twitter Live, we're on Facebook Live, and we're on YouTube Live. So please go tell your friends, go tell your family, go tell your neighbors to come on and watch this program, because this is an outstanding program and we're looking forward to this conversation. Again, if you're looking for us on YouTube Live, go to @Coffee with Democrats 7998. Again, that's @Coffee with Democrats, all one word, 7998. On Facebook, it's just Coffee with Democrats, and look for this live section. Usually the icon is glowing and you can click on the icon, the Coffee with Democrats icon on the side. And then on Twitter, it's @Coffee with Dems, @Coffee with Dems, DEMS. Elon Musk shorted out of the rest of the word that we had for Democrats, so we had to shorten it up to satisfy him. But again, on Twitter Live, it's Coffee with Dems. So again, good morning, George. Thanks for coming on Coffee with Democrats. Sure. And we can't get on Coffee with Democrats without having a conversation about our favorite coffee. So what's your favorite coffee or coffee substitute that you like to get up with first thing in the morning and get around with?
I got my cup. I do about 1 cup a day, and I really don't have a Folgers. It's probably the one I buy the most, but I like that chocolate creamer that they make, and so that's what adds to my coffee, whatever kind it is. But I do about 1 cup a day, and that's my limit. So I'm doing it now.
Well, excellent. Well, thanks for sharing coffee with us today. Scott, you want to tell us just a little bit about your favorite coffee?
My favorite coffee, and the one I'm working on right now, is iced coffee with a little bit of cream. And from the looks of what they're saying about the weather tonight, this will probably not be my last cup of coffee today.
And me as well. Thanks for saying that. We will get into the weather here in just a little bit and talk about that. My favorite coffee, and I have my favorite coffee cup right here. It's my grandchildren's coffee cup from Good Shepherd Lutheran Church up in Marysville, Kansas. And so a shout out to my grandchildren for giving me that coffee cup. My favorite coffee to put into it is McCafe. For all the years that I worked, I was on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 43 years with the railroad. And because of here in the last 20 years, I got really hooked on drive-through at McDonald's. No matter where I was at in the country, there was always a McDonald's that I could drive through. So I got hooked on that with cream and sweetener. It was real easy for me to drive through and say, a large cup of coffee with 5 creamers and 5 sweeteners in it. And they would treat me so good. And it was always the best, and it was the same no matter where I went. So all right. Well, we're going to get in and start talking a little bit about George here. So I'm going to give a little introduction here. Senator Young on his website has a very small little phrase on there, a statement. And I'm going to read that out loud because I think this is such an impactful statement that everybody needs to be aware of this. And also make this part of their life. While it is important that as your senator of Oklahoma District 48, I promote positive economic growth for our state, it is equally important that I promote the necessity of culture recognition and the changes needed to evolve the state to embrace community uplift, and one that encourages the ability for all to live, work, marry, worship in peace. That is so impactful. Thank you so much for that statement, Senator Young. So help us with this conversation with some opening comments, some opening remarks concerning your mission statement and what you believe, will help other people.
Well, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to do that. And that statement has been part of my being for quite a long while. I would add that there is another statement. It was taken and derived from the book of Philippians in the New Testament in chapter 3, verses 13 and 14. I won't quote those for you, but and I could quote them for you. But what I saw one commentator write on that about those verses, because it was Paul saying that, brothers and sisters, I count not myself to have apprehended, but this one thing I do, forgetting what is behind, looking forward to what is ahead, I press on toward the upward call of God in Christ Jesus. I gave it to you anyway. It was interpreted. It was interpreted by a commentator simply as, I have not yet caught that which I have been called to catch. My job in life, my thrust in life is to be able to honor God by honoring the people that God has entrusted to me and that God has brought me in contact with. And so that never ends. It makes no difference if I'm in the Senate or not in the Senate. For all the years I've been, just had a birthday past a week ago Monday. I turned 70 years old. I'm taking off 2 years from the Senate, resigning a couple of years early. That does not mean I'm leaving, I'm going anywhere. I told folks, I'm not retiring. I'm just resigning and changing lanes. I'm still going to be doing the same things that I've always been doing. And so I'm looking forward to this new adventure for me that will allow me, outside of the confines of the Oklahoma State Senate, to be able to help the people that I believe are God's people and the people who need the help that we have developed the abilities to help them with.
And it's such a powerful statement, and it's such a great motivation for people. Is I have not yet caught what I need to catch, and
That's right.
and that is so powerful, and that's something that I think I'm going to kind of tilt just a little bit, because I want to talk more about your evangelicalism with Jesus Christ and how that applies in our political environment today. But we are in a political environment.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the political environment that we're going to go into here in this year, and we've got a major election coming up in November that not only is impacting state offices, but it's also national offices. We've got to encourage more people to vote, to register to vote, and become active within the political environment this year. And it's the one thing that I did watch a pastor here recently, our calling to God is to be part of God's work. That is separate from our political life. We have to keep those separate, because what we do for God is the glory of God. But what we do in our country, we do for our country and our fellow man. And we've got to be able to do everything we can to uplift everybody to become a part of, I'm going to say, a part of the problem. We've got to become part of the problem in order to fix it and solve it so that it's no longer a problem. Because if we keep passing the buck to somebody else, we're not going to be part of the solution. In order to be part of the solution, we first have to be part of the problem. So we need to get more people to vote. So what is your takeaway on some of the things we should be doing and what you want us to start doing to get more people? And we can break it down by ethnicity: more Black people, more Hispanics, more brown people, more Native Americans, just more Democrats to go out and vote. What's your theory and thoughts?
Yeah. Well, let me quickly refer back again to last Monday. I turned 70 years old. That's one. I'm proud of those 70 years. Secondly, I was born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. That is in the South. I was That's where I got my beginning, my start. That's where everything around me began to make me who I am. You can do the math, and you'll know that I was born in the midst of the civil rights movement, that I was raised up in the 60s and 70s during the civil rights movement. I was in Memphis when Dr. King was assassinated. All of those things were occurring around me as a young African American, seeing the changes that were happening in our country. I read about it. I was one of those kids who liked reading, and I was in the 8th grade when Dr. King was assassinated. And so, I was old enough to understand when my mother called me to the door with tears in her eyes to report that downtown Dr. King had just been assassinated, not too far from where we live. And so it has always been incumbent upon me, because my mother and father were part of the church. And anyone who knows the history of African Americans know that the church has been central to their existence always. And so my father was a deacon. My mother was on the motherboard, which was the top role in the church for females. And they were always encountering people at our house who were talking about the future, talking about the past, talking about how we can make things better. And so that point in time was one of the most important and significant moments when we were talking about how important it is for folk to vote. And so it was ingrained in me that voting is ultimately one of the things that we have an opportunity to make a difference in our country, make an impact in our country, make an impact in our city, state, and communities, was voting. People died. I was listening. I was watching TV when folk were assassinated. Medgar Evers for helping us push the opportunity to vote. I was there. I saw those things. I encountered those things. And so it was to me the beginning of what's the most significant thing that I can do as a civic responsibility that was directly connected to the church, because I saw it all working together. And that was to vote. And the vote said, I make a difference in a vote. I cause myself to be injected into the process. When I vote, it is a part of this fabric of America. When I vote, it makes a difference. My vote makes a difference because it gives me the voice to be able to speak and to share and to say the things that I want to say. And so that it is important to me. And so let me jump to something else very quickly, which bothers me is this movement to suppress the vote. Mm-hmm. And it is working. Let me say it. That's the strange thing. How can you inform folk that how badly we need you to vote by saying don't vote because it will not matter? That doesn't even correlate with me. And so I don't understand how that is taking such an effect. So I try to speak on that as much as I can, that be aware of the fact that there are things going on. People are saying things, writing things. You hear things on TV that really try to get you to say, my vote does not count. And your vote does count. I don't care if you vote for the losing candidate, your vote counts. Your vote is a part of the whole process, and your vote makes a difference when you vote. The total numbers, I've seen it in myself as a senator. My last election, I had one of the highest number of vote turnouts than any other senator. I was like a third or fourth in all of those 20-something races in the Senate, because it wasn't usually half and half, but we didn't have 24 races. The 18, 20 races we had, I was like the third or fourth highest vote getter out of all those across the state. That meant something to me. That meant that the people in my community saw the impact of voting and wanted to make sure that it took hold. And so it is important to us, not only because of right now, but because of our history, that we get out and vote, because every vote does count.
I'm going to back up just a little bit. Again, folks, if you're watching this and you're not sharing this with your friends, with your family, with your neighbors, with your followers on Twitter, on Facebook, or on YouTube, we aren't doing the right things. We've got to get the word out for people to watch this message. Senator Young is absolutely one of the greatest ambassadors for democracy and the Democratic Party anywhere in the state of Oklahoma. And we are just honored beyond compare to have him here with us. We've got to get more people on here to watch this and spread the word, because what he's telling us, we have to inject ourselves into the process. We've got to do that. And in order to do that, we've got to get all of the people that we know involved in that process as well. So spread the word right now. Go to the share button. Tell all of your friends, family, and followers to come over here and watch this show. this is a great example. So I'm going to turn over to Scott for a couple of minutes and let Scott ask a couple of questions here and engage in conversation. So Scott, good morning.
Good morning. And George, I'm just so happy to see you. I'm always happy to see you. I've been a big George fan for a long time, and that's not about to change anytime soon. I want to, you brought up the importance of the Black church, and that's still very much the case because African American churches throughout this country are strong advocates for registering people to vote and encouraging them to vote, not who to vote for, but to vote. And I think that we can all take a lesson from that. But I want to stay with the church for a moment. We are, and I know that people have used the Bible to cover their sins time immemorial. If we think back to slavery and all the ways that people tried to use the Bible to justify slavery. But in my lifetime, I have never seen some of the things that we're seeing now in terms of people who the first thing they will tell you about themselves is that they're a Christian. And then the second thing that comes out of their mouth proves that they're not. And there's a real there's a danger in this I see, not only to our society, but a danger to the church, because when people look at a presidential candidate hawking Bibles with the Constitution and something is just not working right. How, and this is a big question, and honestly, we could talk days about this. But how do we start to lose the inherent danger, I guess, that a lot of people see in the word Christian, because of some of our elected officials here are just so eager to push their interpretation of Christianity on our citizens, particularly our young people.
Right.
How do we ever begin to equalize this, George?
Well, I think one of the things, and you're really making a point that is very significant and important, because I sit in that chamber with 47 other senators most of the time, and it grates upon me when I hear them using scripture to kind of back up what they're trying to do, not to back up the scripture, but to back up what they're trying to do. And I said to a friend of mine the other day, I know, looking across that body and reading most of them, I know their bios. I've been in more Bible classes as a student, not only teaching, forget the teaching part, but as a student than any of them. I have 3 graduate degrees in religion or theology. I have a doctorate in ministry. And I said it not to brag, but to say none of them have sat in as many classes on theology, the Bible, and all the things associated with that. The church, how to operate the church. One of my degrees is in organizational management, nonprofit, and the church management. And so it grates upon me to hear them use scripture to divide us when scripture's very purpose is to bring us together. If we could get the bottom line, and I'm not going to, but the bottom line is, to God, there is no difference between the secular and the sacred. And that doesn't mean that there is no difference technically. What that says to me is there is no difference in how we approach it. I need to respect everyone, respect their choices, respect their lifestyle, respect who they are, respect where they come from. I need to go beyond respecting that. I need to love them. And when you can get to that point, all of that other stuff begins to flake away, and you see the true picture of people who are saying things that they really don't quite understand. Because when you can pass a piece of legislation and get the number of people to vote for it that we had last week, that said in essence that law enforcement now can stop someone who looks Hispanic, in essence, and ask them, that's racial profiling. That's exactly what it is. How are you going to stop them without looking at them? And how are you going to stop them without looking at them and have the thought that this may be somebody that this law implies may be here illegally, as they want to say? All of that is part of this process of trying to to take away the very rights that we have been given. And so, when it comes to I've never had a problem on any vote on the House floor when I was in the House or in the Senate that I had to stop and say, would God want me to vote yes or no on that? Because all of my votes have been based on my faith journey. All of my votes have been based on who I am. All of my votes have been based on the fact that I have a mother and a father who tried to teach me right and wrong, who tried to teach me good and bad, who tried to teach me you are not better than anyone, but you are as good as everyone. And that helped me. They didn't teach me hate. And you remember when I was born and raised during a time when there was a lot of hatred. There was a lot of mean things going on, but my mother and father never taught me hatred. They taught me do the best that you can do, treat others as you would want them to treat you, love, and you will receive love in return. I know all the time that doesn't happen, but let me tell you this. It has worked for me these 70 years, and I would not trade anything for what God has taken me through. I would not trade anything for the opportunities I've had to be able to try and impact lives. And so I don't quite, it's difficult for me sitting in there and hearing them talk about the Bible, because I want to jump up and say, be quiet, just stop right there. Don't say anymore, because you're really off base and you're not talking love, which is the foundation of why we are who we are as far as religion is concerned.
It's more like the church that they want to participate in is like the Westboro Baptist Church in Topeka, Kansas, rather than the whatever church it is on the corner of in their neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And that kind of hatred coming out of the church. And we see ministers and pastors who are preaching hate and separation on a regular basis outside of the Capitol, and some of that I think is influencing these senators and representatives within the chambers that they this whole thing about doing away with DEI, that's another subject, but it's still in line with what you're talking about. It's aligning themselves with hate and being able to bring back discrimination. And it's just so difficult to see people who promote the word of God and promote the word of Jesus Christ and turn right around and say, we want this for Jesus Christ, but we don't want it for somebody else. And we want it for, this is what we want, and we're going to do it in the name of Jesus Christ, but we're also going to identify these people and send them back to another country. And we're going to put up a wall and a wall that I think is just like the walls of Jericho. It's going to come falling down, and we've seen it falling down. But it's just so sad to me to see this commentary. And I had people that I worked with that were very close to me that I worked with who perpetuated the same kind of hate. And they forgot love thy neighbor with all their heart, with all their soul, and love their God, And that is just so hard for me to see that. And it's like, yeah, we'll do all those things except, and I don't get it. And so thank you for your statement. And I'm going to turn it back. Scott, can I apologize to you? I jumped in there and I shouldn't have.
No. We're having a conversation. This isn't just a Q&A. And I appreciate that. George, I want to go back to something you said, that
Sure.
You have a responsibility to respect other people, and beyond that is to love them.
Yeah.
And that's what we're called to do. When I hear about tolerance, was a big word in the LGBTQ community back in the 70s and 80s, where you don't have to love me, just tolerate me. Well, I never subscribed to that, because that's like we tolerate flies at a picnic. That's a long way from loving those flies. So you're talking about something that should be simple. It should be one of the very first things we learned in life. I guess a lot of people have forgotten that. But I'm going to ask you to speak directly to younger Oklahomans, people who are in junior high and high school or college. And what incentive can you offer them to remain in Oklahoma, to help make Oklahoma a better place for everyone?
Yeah. That is very difficult because of some of the things that are going on, particularly in the political arena and the age group that you're talking about, junior high school, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old. Listen, my hope for not only Oklahoma, but my hope for this nation relies in this one thing. When I go into the elementary schools, when I go into the Head Starts, the kindergarten, the pre-Ks, what I'm seeing, even in my district, what I'm seeing is a distinct change in the population. There is more diversity that exists on that level than I've ever seen in my life. My hope and prayer is that what God is doing is changing it almost from the bottom up, that these kids are coming in with each other. They are coming in knowing each other. They're not coming in as I did. I went from kindergarten to the 8th grade in an all-black school. There was not a white person in that school until the 8th grade when I ran into a teacher who was white, the only white teacher at that school. And him and I became really good and became close to each other. Matter of fact, he helped me to go to the high school that I went to, which was an integrated school. But it is because of that diversity that I see at that level that I think we're going to change, because what happens there is no more mystery about other people, about other dialects, about other cultures, because you interact so freely with them. And my prayer, my hope is that as these young people grow older in junior high school, you see the same thing. There is a distinct diversity that is existing. And let me quickly say this, and y'all stop me if I go too long. The George Floyd thing. This is three things that jumped out at me about the aftermath of George Floyd. One was the size of the protests. There were large protests all over the world. I mean, large protests all over the world. That was the first thing. That was something to see. A police officer who took the life of this man with his knee on his neck, and for the world to have the large protest was great. Secondly, it was the diversity of those protests. It was more white people than black people in a lot of the protests that existed, places where there were not high black populations. People were protesting this. You've got to take that in consideration and say there's a change that happened, because I was alive during the civil rights movement, and there were more black folk in the civil rights marches than there were white, not with the George Floyd thing. And then thirdly, not only was the size of them diversity, but the third thing that I'll never forget and has helped me about as much as the teacher walkout, the third thing is simply the age of those protesters. And so, God, I rest my case on this. I see our country changing. I see our country improving. We are not there yet, but when I take those things into consideration, I see the beauty of what we call America. I see the tapestry of this country. I see the change of what originally made this country strong and great coming back to existence because of these young people who are seeing no more color and all of those things that divide us. But it is common now for a young person in kindergarten, a Head Start, first, second, third, fourth, to be in class with African American, Hispanic, Asian American. I mean, that was very unique. I'm looking at it and thinking, during my time, that would have never happened. And so my hope is on that they'll grow up and we won't have the ideas of difference, but we'll have the idea of unity. We are all part of what this great country that makes us great people. And I think that to me is at 70 years old, that's why I'm optimistic. That's why I'm hopeful. That's why I believe that we're going to overcome all of the obstacles that prevented us from one day being able to be a nation that we like to call not just a group of states, but a United States. And so that's what I'm resting on.
And that brings me to what you just talked about. And I'm going to just kind of reemphasize about what you're seeing within the school districts that you in pre-K is the diversity and how people are interacting. You don't have, all black schools, you don't have all Mexican schools, as much as I'd like to say there's not all white schools, that's not true. There are all white schools, and most of those are private. But let's talk about this just for a little bit. What you just brought up could be the reason why, and I think in my opinion, is the reason why you're seeing people like Ryan Walters getting elected in the state of Oklahoma, is because the GOP sees how our schools, our public schools, are so integrated and so diverse that in order to stop that from happening, they've got to kill the public education. And 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 it's also something else that I see, and the reason why we're seeing such a resurgence of white nationalism. I call it white nationalism. Some people call it Christian nationalism, but to me, it's one and the same. You're seeing this nationalism that's coming about in the United States so prevalently throughout our United States and it's being emboldened by a former President Trump. But you're also noticing the reason they're doing that is they are becoming more dangerous, as it's like a dangerous animal. As a dangerous animal is dying, it will start lashing out, and it will lash out very prolifically, to the point where it will kill other animals that are healthy. And that's just, again, that because of, like a dangerous predator, when it's dying, will lash out at anything that gets close to it. And we're seeing the same thing happening within the GOP and within I don't even want to call it the Republican Party, because it's not the Republican Party that we grew up with. It's more of the MAGA movement, but it's that white nationalism, and they call it white Christian nationalism, whatever you want to call it. And it's to me, it's that dying animal. We know it's dying.
Racism. You're talking about the existence still of racism. I just mentioned a few minutes ago about our schools, that I think our schools are fighting against racism. You made couple of points. If you could just give me a moment. One is you're right. They're trying, literally trying to kill what we term as public education, what we call that education that's constitutionally provided for. They're trying to kill that by vouchers, by school choice, by all of those things that seem to have on the top end. They're very nice things. I ought to have choice. You've always had school choice, though. And now, but the money that they're taking out of education, there's only one pot of money. And that money for charter schools, that money for all the other choices that they make. And even now, with our Supreme Court, this Catholic school that they want to start and to use public funding, taxpayers funding for, it's all they're trying to have. We want to choose who gets educated and who does not get educated.
True.
And that's what they're doing. It is really an awful thing to see what's happening. One of my schools in my district, I talked to one of the leaders in that school, and they were telling me about the AP Mass Placement Studies. And they said, I taught this particular person taught out at, I'll tell you where, out of Deer Creek. They said they had 24, 25, maybe 30 AP pathways when she was out there teaching. And now the school in my district that she's a part of now, they have three AP. And it's because of, a lot of that is because of finance. Well, first thing, if you ask me, first thing we need to do, increase the wages of our teachers. That's the first thing. Now, all other stuff I'll talk to you about. But if we don't give teachers a legitimate salary that will help them to be able to live and to be able to live, to do the things that they love. We have teachers who love teaching, and that's what they want to do. We're making it difficult for them to do that. And so I said that to get to this one point. It is almost like we have forgotten history, because if we will stop for a minute and think, during Reconstruction, the biggest problem it was for trying to integrate former slaves into society, and you needed public education for that, you needed jobs for that, and we fought it. They fought it. They fought it tooth and nails, just like they're fighting the changes that are taking places in our country right now. Why are we fighting it? We ought to be very, very accommodating to the changes that are taking place in our country. We ought to be very excited about the changes, because it means our country is growing, our country is developing, our country is becoming more diverse, and we're trying to contain that diversity, and you will not be able to get it, because the very tenets of the foundation of this country is about bring us your poor, your downtrodden, bring us those who are in need of a new start, bring us those who have a hope of a better day. That's what our country is about. And we're trying to stop that. And so it is incumbent upon those of us, this conversation we're having, a lot of folk are not going to agree with it, but you're absolutely right. I think what you're seeing is true, Kevin. And we've got to start pushing back to some degree, saying, listen, I'm not disagreeing with you. What I am saying is there is another route. And the other route is, why don't we look at the larger picture here and see if we can bring everyone into this discussion, everyone into this growth, everyone into this development of the United States of America, which is that it's a great country. We are a great country. The opportunities are still there. But some of the things that are happening are very disturbing. And if we don't watch out, I think they will be very destructive to us, because we made some changes, made some progress. Reconstruction was, read the story of Reconstruction, any accounting of it, and you'll see how difficult, and you'll wonder, how did we even get to this point if things were that bad during Reconstruction? But we did, we overcame it. We're going to overcome where we are now. Maybe not in my lifetime, because I'm ready to fade off the scene, but we've got folk who believe in the foundation and the context of that foundation in this country and in this time. And I think we shall, as it was said by President Johnson, as he said, one of the, I think, greatest quotes of all time, ending a press conference he had in TV conference, and he said, "We shall overcome." He just connected himself to the process. He connected himself to the future. He connected himself to what he knew was going to happen. And we see that once we open up those avenues and corridors for people who look like me, that things begin to change.
And, we
George,
see
I
that.
want to just,
Yeah, go ahead,
I'm
Scott.
sorry, Kevin.
No, go.
George, I just need to correct one thing that you said a moment ago.
Mm-hmm.
You said that you're getting ready to fade into the sunset. Well, let me tell you something. Based on the messages of hope that you have given us this morning, I'm kind of thinking about Reverend Dr. George Young for president in 2028. So you're not going to fade anywhere.
God, thank you. I'm not going. I didn't retire. I just resigned. I'm just changing lanes. You still hear from me, probably more so now, because I don't have the confines of the Senate to constrict me. I don't have to fight with one arm behind my back. I'm going to tell the truth as I see it. And so, no, I'm not going anywhere. I'm looking forward to it as long as God gives me strength. I'm going to do that. I want to add one thing quickly, and then I'll quit jumping in. My church is fairly diverse. I have some white people who come to my church. That I want to say that. And the reason I say that is that when I'm preparing my sermon, that never comes into the context of my preparation, because I don't think that way. I don't have to think, I bet not say that. I shouldn't say that. I wish you could interview some of those folks and ask them, do they feel pinpointed? Do they feel pointed out? Do they feel someone? They don't. They tell me themselves how much they enjoy coming. And I don't have to make an effort not to make them uncomfortable. I don't, because if you do what is right, what is just, what is fair, people will respond in like ways, in like kind. And so all that, the differences that we want to talk about really are not holding us back. It's those of us, as was said earlier, the people who want to change this country to make it because of their fear, because of their doubts about them having what they once had. You're not going to lose anything if the whole pie grows larger. So I wanted to say that quickly, because I have a very good congregation, wonderful folk, and they share with me quite often. And if I was saying something that was not, they would tell me, but they feel comfortable in it. And I want to say, I wish I could take credit for not making them feel uncomfortable, but I can't. It is just, I try my best to do what is right, what is good, what is fair, what is just. Do I do it all the time? No, I miss the boat sometimes, but I try. And I try so hard that I think God honors that, and honors that in the things that I come in contact with.
And that brings me to what you were just talking about with your previous statement about how we, through Reconstruction, how difficult things were and how we were trying to do everything we could. Again, because the white people felt that they were being attacked. They then turned around and started all these Jim Crow laws. And Beto O'Rourke has, a dear friend of ours, has talks about a friend that he has in Texas, or that he knew of in Texas, who started in the early 1900s, had the vote taken away, but he showed up at the poll every single election. And he finally won, like 25 years after this whole process started, he finally won the right to vote again. But people, would ask him, would interview him all the time, why are you doing this? And that's because I have hope. I still have hope for, for the people of the United States and for our government. He never gave up hope. And that's what I think is the message that, we can take from you is never give up, and that goes back to, one of the things that I gave a speech for Labor Day last year. And that was one of the things that I took from Winston Churchill, one of his speeches that he had. Never, 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 never give up, never give in unless it's for, something of bad intent. Do not ever give up. So no matter how bleak it is, we still have hope. And that's where we are here in Oklahoma. We should always look at hope. Never give up, never give in. We need to continue to reach out across the aisle. This year's the first year, I say this year, 2 years ago was the first time I ever put a political sign in my front yard. And I did that to reach out to my neighbors and to reach out and let those people know if they come over and they wanted to say, well, I don't like Joy Hoffmeister, I want to vote for Ryan. And, you're just being a hateful person by putting up your political signs. I said, okay, all right, thank you. Appreciate it. I'm not going to try to engage in an argument with you. You know what my views are, and I'm going to reach out, and I'm going to continue to reach out and hope. Just be careful of what you ask for. My father always had a famous statement for me. Be careful for what you ask for, because you might get more than what you asked.
Yes, that's right.
And I think that's what is going on now within the Republican Party in Oklahoma. They've got exactly what they wanted, and they don't like what they're getting.
Right.
So that kind of, we can talk more about education if you want to, but I think we need to try to change topics a little bit, because we've really pushed a lot about, the racial inequality, but we've got a real problem in the state of Oklahoma with inequality of the sexes. Women are under attack. Women are being stripped of their rights. Women are being stripped of their liberties. We have women who are being stripped of their lives through maternity care and the lack thereof. So, can you talk to us a little bit about, what your feelings are? And then after that comment, we're getting close on the shorter time. We need to kind of close things down.
That is another front that I'm just kind of dismayed at how it has taken such how there's such a difference in that. And I guess my problem is because obviously I talk to folk all the time. I'm a state senator and I pastor a church with people who look to me as their spiritual leader. And so they talk to me. I have a congregation of people who share with me every week. I keep abreast of what's going on in my district in particular, because that's where most of the folk live. And listen, what I'm discovering is they don't quite understand what's going on with that whole movement. They don't see how you are protecting me by not allowing me to have the choices that I need. It's a difficult, very difficult thing for me, because I've had during those votes on those particular bills that you have alluded to, and even the bills about trying to protect women. I've had women who called me and said, I don't know who they're trying to protect, but they should not talking about me, and they should be talking about some other things like education and economics and jobs and those kind of things, instead of there's not even a foundation for those things. But I think, as you said earlier, they're trying to create a windstorm of dust and all kinds of things to get the attention away from the very issues that are most significant and important. And in some instances, they're doing a pretty good job of causing us to take our eye off of the most significant things and look at things that really are not as meaningful as they should be. And one of those things is this whole push of trying to, and I'm going beyond abortion. I'm talking about the things that they're talking about so women. It's like a false dichotomy of things that are happening. There's not a split that exists It is not something that has been created. And because most of the folk I talk to are not struggling with that. It's right back to what I started with. Most folk that I talk to said, if you love one another, you know what? You're going to be able to work out the differences. If you actually love and care about one another, you're going to work out the differences, which takes me back to the fact that that's who I am. My faith journey is how I make the decisions of life. I wish I made all of them as carefully and good as I would like to, but I don't. But it's always based on my faith journey. And so that's another whole issue that I think is taking place to try to divert our attention away from the main focus, and that is even to get it off of the discussion about abortion. I think this whole idea, women's Bill of Rights, there was a bill that we had to deal with that, and I'm I'm dismayed at some of the things that we use that are being used to try, and as you said earlier, to try to confuse us in essence, and to take our eyes off of the really important and significant stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we could go on and talk about this for the rest of the day, but we have to come to a close on our conversation. You are a very, very busy man, and we have just been, I'm just over the moon excited. I'm just so happy that you could come on and be with us today and engage in conversation with us and have a cup of coffee with us, because that was the whole premise about Coffee with Democrats, because we want to come together. We want to be able to help uplift each other. And sometimes it didn't happen today, but sometimes we have to have disagreements. And at the end of the disagreement, we got to be able to get up and put our arm around one another and say, hey, I still love you, brother. And we got to go on. And that's what as a kid, when I was going to the coffee shop and I would see those guys over in the corner of the coffee shop, they were the same people all the time. And they would yell and scream at one another, but they'd get up, they'd shake hands, they'd put their arm around one another, and they'd walk out together. And they'd show back up the next day and still have that same conversation. That's why we formed Coffee with Democrats. And again, it has nothing to do with you, but I am just so grateful to you. I mean, beyond grateful. You're just such a wonderful person. You're such a great ambassador that we really, we need to spend more time listening to you and talking to you. And I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. To anybody who is watching this conversation, you've got to share this conversation. Share it with your followers, share it with your friends, share it with your neighbors, share it with your family. We've got to get ourselves centered and get excited about being Democrats. Be excited about getting out and voting. Don't hide in the shadows. Don't push, allow people to make you feel like you're less than, because you're not.
Right.
We're so grateful. Thank you so much, Senator Young. You are such a great person, and I cannot spend enough time around you.
Talk about a way to start the week. Man, this has been, I'm so energized. You always energize me, whether it's in person or in a situation like this, because I'll tell you something. I didn't realize today how much in need of hope I was until I started hearing you talk. So thank you for that, my friend. And I can't wait to see you again soon.
Likewise, Scott. Thank you, guys. I've had a wonderful time. I always enjoy talking about what we can do to make our communities better and how we can improve it, and love the service that God has allowed me to give, and want to continue doing it as long as I can. Thank you for allowing me to be part of Coffee with Democrats.
Well, thank you so much. Hey, we have a special guest that's going to come on with us tomorrow. Scott, do you remember who we have tomorrow? Because I am so excited to have George with us. I can't even think about tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow we'll be talking with Mitchell Jacobs, who's out of the Newcastle, Lexington area.
Yeah. And so we're going to have him on tomorrow. He's a great former military veteran, highly decorated. He's going to law school at OU. He's got a lot to come to bring to the table, and we've got to get behind him and support him for his candidacy, and we've got to get him elected.
Good.
Senator Young,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm going to close it as soon as you're done.
Okay, I was just going to say that if you're watching us in Oklahoma or Kansas, particularly today, please be very aware of the weather. The predictions that we're hearing so far make it sound like we are really going to be in for a tough time. And so please take care of yourselves, of your children, and don't forget to take good care of your pets. And I read something over the weekend that made a lot of sense. When you go into shelter, whether that's a basement or the interior of your home, wear shoes because you may need them to leave that area. So
Ab-
please take good care of yourselves.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that, Scott. And those are important messages. And when today is over with, we're going to go back and we're going to do exactly what Senator Young told us to do. And we're going to go out and we're going to help pick up our neighbors, and we're going to do what we can. We don't care what their political background and political views are. They are our neighbors, and we've got to show them love. And that's what we're going to do after it. We need to do it all the time, but that's the Oklahoma standard. We're going to follow through with the Oklahoma standard today. And we know that some of our neighbors are going to be hurting really bad at the end of today. Thank you again, Senator Young. We're going to call it quits for the day, but thank you so much for coming on with us.
All right. Thank you.
Until the next time, folks, please be safe. First of all, I am one of your biggest fans, George, and Scott will tell you that I get excited and nervous, and I've got PTSD from some stuff that's happened, and I get to shaking real bad. My hands and arms get to shaking real bad. And it does that whenever I'm excited to be with somebody and have a conversation. I've been shaking like a leaf all morning today. I can't hardly even take a drink of water because my arms are shaking. But it's a good shake. That's the thing I want people to know is not everything that happens. It's part of who I am.
Well, relax. Scott will tell you, man, I'm an easygoing guy until.
He's always been my easiest interviewee ever.
That's right, man. Listen, I'm easygoing until they push the wrong buttons on me, because I'm old enough to have experienced and witnessed some stuff that I just will not allow to go by without saying something about. But no, sir, it is my pleasure to be with you guys today.
It is absolutely a pleasure of ours. This segment of Coffee with Democrats is brought to you by Steve Holcomb, Attorney at Law. With family ties to Oklahoma in the legal field that goes back as far as the early 1900s, Steve Holcomb is a well-known and respected attorney at law in Pawhuska, Oklahoma. You can trust Steve Holcomb, Attorney at Law, with your legal needs. For generations encompassing over 100 years, the Holcomb family name has practiced law and served the cattlemen of Oklahoma. From Marion Holcomb, Steve's great-grandfather, who became a judge among the lands of the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes in southwest Oklahoma in the early 1900s, who then moved to Pawhuska to practice law, to his grandfather, Thad Holcomb Sr., and his father, Lee Holcomb, who both served as presidents of the Osage County Cattlemen's Association. The Holcomb name has been and still is the trusted name for Oklahomans. As an enthusiastic supporter of Coffee with Democrats, who promotes the Oklahoma standard of service, honor, and kindness, Steve Holcomb is the attorney we recommend going to when you have general practice legal needs. Call 918-287-8762. That's 918-287-8762 to schedule a consultation. Initial consultations may be provided free of charge, or go to holcomb.legal for more information.